I'm gonna say we're gonna propose to waive that unless the city manager says we can't.
Okay, good. Just didn't want to get
Because that's ridiculous.
into any trouble.
Yeah, it's meeting to meeting.
And it's arbitrary.
Yeah.
What's 30 days? Is that in some
Whoever wrote
somewhere?
that probably was thinking month to month, 30 days in a month.
I don't think it's like a state law or anything like that. It's just within our ordinance.
Well, I'm finding out a lot of gotchas in the ordinance that really tick me
There
off.
are a lot of gotchas.
And that's because it was put together very
That
sloppily.
happened to me when I was at home the last time. I could hear it on YouTube.
Nice to see you too.
And so they would have to, the other 30 days after, they can't start. They want to start like in July.
Is that the same privilege?
As long as it's past July.
Oh, I know. They're so finicky. Oh, yeah.
Today's the 11th.
Oh, yeah. So they just have to be advised that it's a 30-day waiting period before you can
By
start.
the way, we're on, just so you know, like your conversations.
Gotchas, like you say. What?
What the mics are on.
Okay.
So you all know.
Well, I haven't sworn yet.
Yeah.
Behave yourself.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Sam's line, give it a rest for a
Right,
year.
so-
I've got the piece for one down the
Do you know where these notes came from?
Huh?
Those mine.
Well, even brother, I hear from him occasionally.
There's the minutes and then
There's, I believe that they came through Denise from
He is coming out.
Christine.
Yeah, so
I
our
watched
room will
the
be,
meeting online and I took
the room will
notes.
be full. So I don't know.
It's just more
And
detail.
It's what differed, yeah, from the
That's
meeting,
pushing it.
from the initial minutes
Yeah,
that
you
she
have
put out.
Yeah.
I added, and it was more.
nine.
Yours?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
When Phil
Yeah,
comes in,
because
someone
it
will have
was a
to
public
figure out.
hearing and, you know, we.
So
I
is
think
she
Bob said
gonna,
sometimes we'll be referring to that in our
Okay.
minutes.
You want me to
So I
do
wanted
that?
to-
But we
is
have
she
to-
gonna enter these into the official
I
minutes?
think that's the intent.
That's the question.
That's the intent.
Yeah, because I got them in 2 ways.
In fact, I stapled them into my copy of the minutes.
We'll just have to, you could read them over and see if they follow.
Oh, they all sound fine.
Yeah, I wanted to be, you know, detailed about what.
All right, this is a newer version of the agenda. Let's throw the old one away. Oh, boy.
So as of today,
So when did we meet in June?
Is, in May, you mean?
In May. We met on the 7th.
The 14th.
Oh, darn, that's right.
We met on the 14th.
That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 28 days. No.
And no, I do it daily anyways for work, but the link wasn't working last time. They had recently done an upgrade. That was the only problem, but eventually he sent me a new one and it worked fine. Yeah.
Yes, I did get it.
Well, that's what it is, you know, I thought it was something.
Okay.
So I'm going to compare me to that. I just want to leave that on.
We have issues. Can you believe it's June already?
Yeah.
Unlike,
Have you unmuted the computer for Zoom?
Yep.
Okay. Too warm.
Where is 713 Main Street? Do anybody?
No. 713 Main Street?
What's,
About the library,
oh, that building, okay.
behind the legal building.
So the question there will be, so where Rick Tallman's office is, the upper parking lot, the two buildings go to that, those are properties that
So now, if we come up with a suggestion.
Yeah, well, Sean said he could, access your cell phone as well.
We're gonna try to connect this again. So that's a big issue. So,
Evening.
Hey, Drew.
Hi. Hello, brother. Where are you going? Why aren't you working?
Well, I'm doing my civic duty, Tom.
Thank you.
Just like Tom.
That's right.
How are you, Smith? Please excuse my attire. I didn't have time to.
you have a question for me?
I
I'll
do.
hear it through YouTube on the way.
I have one right now.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
There's something in the bylaws, zoning bylaws that say we have to wait 30 days between hearings. Today is 28. Can I waive that?
Holy cow.
It would be my intention to waive it if I could.
We never ended.
On this,
I got 100.
on which one?
The time period between the concept review and the site review, we turn out to be, we're 28 calendar days from the last meeting, right? And I don't want to delay these people another month because of some nit.
So you can approve it contingent upon no other negative or
Showing up in 2 days.
circumstantial other evidence coming forward in the next 2 days to the staff.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
That's a good answer. I knew you'd have the right answer. That guy's so smart.
Well, that's a ploy that I want to use on another issue tonight, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something might happen every year.
Oh, yeah. And they also do random selections of interviews as well.
I think we've got all of this.
Each day program, it needs to be. They do random selections of all.
I was gonna say,
Just
We're going to hang you from the ceiling.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Are we ready to go?
David's not here yet, but we're at his time.
And the mics are on. I'll call this meeting to order. The first item is approval of the minutes. Please note that there's a page and a half of inserted text, which I believe should be included in the minutes. And this was distributed to planning board members earlier in the week.
You did?
Anytime. Just now.
David? We just opened, we're reviewing the minutes.
Okay. So is the intent to incorporate the notes that were received into a new version of the minutes?
I would just take them as an addendum. They all reference the paragraphs.
Very good. I wanted to point out something that I noticed as well. On the numbering for the minutes, you went from Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, back to 2.
Yep.
On new business, do you see that?
No, that's not Christine's, that's the original.
I'm sorry, in the published?
Okay, I'll fix that, I see.
Yeah, it's just a
It's
numbering
it's a
thing.
typo issue,
Yep.
sequencing. Shame on you. Well, Christine will see to the fixing up as the secretary anyway. Any further comments? Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the minutes. I'll second.
Drew and David, now we have to do a roll call vote. I'll start to my right. David?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Dan is a yes. And Christine?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And me, yes. 6, that's 7. All right, the minutes are approved as amended or appended. All right, the next thing we need to do is reconvene the hearing which started almost a month ago, exactly 4 weeks, on Caribou Solar Power LLC. We last time, just to refresh everyone, we looked at the initial site plan as a concept review. We had some comments, and there was some data missing, and it appears to me that the developers have done a lot of work to provide additional data. The glitch that we have, and Dan pointed this out, is that we're supposed to wait 30 days, and it's only been 28. So the city manager has suggested that what we can do is if we find everything in order, where it merits approval, we can approve it tonight contingent upon nothing further showing up for 2 more days. And that's the way I would like to pursue it, with the rest of the board's consent. Okay. Then we have a big packet of material from them. Some of it's repetitive from last time. This first copy of the site design review application, entitled CEO Review, is Ken's homework, and so there are some things in here checked off that we have to check off as we continue. Be that as it may, it's a good starting point.
May I make a comment on that?
Please do.
So I really like this. I think that is a really good approach to bring to the planning board, your CEO, your review, like you have done. I wonder if it would be worthwhile for us to modify this form so that you have a 4th column where you could put your review in that column, and then leave the yes, no, and NA blank for us, for our review. And that way it won't be so confusing, and if the planning board disagrees for any reason with your assessment, we're not having to redo everything.
Well, we don't have to redo everything anyway, because that's not the official copy.
Well, that's where I was confused, because it looks like the official copy.
It says CEO Review on the front. See, I just got educated on that too.
This is new. In conversation with the manager, he said that the thing to do is go down the same checklist, so our review format, in especially in this case where our preliminary review, we had a few things we wanted to add that were missing, a couple things we needed to correct. You know, I think I made note of those as I went along, or I intended to.
I think it's a really good idea. I think that'll help us out a lot.
What I don't have, I thought I had, but I don't think I have, unless I've messed up my packet sufficiently, is what I would call the master copy, where we would be recording our line-by-line decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
I have
That is
it.
missing.
The final plan requirement is not signed by the applicant.
Well, I have a copy that is signed. In our packet, there's a copy that is signed.
You do?
Yes,
Oh, that's the preliminary. That's what we met on last time.
No, final site design review criteria.
So
So,
that's the blank one.
yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I just found it.
I
Right.
don't know if we need that.
But that resulted from last meeting, that paper that you're looking at now.
So what? It's got the signature.
Yep. And you should be able to resume with the rest of the review
So we're
from
gonna
there.
resume with that one. Okay, I'm with you now.
The preliminary has been all checked off now. So, and I don't see how we're going to have any public comments on this unless there's somebody on Zoom.
I believe the developer is following us actually on the YouTube, and if he's got questions, he can fire them through Dennis,
Okay.
Crow's Nest upstairs.
Okay.
So if we've got questions, we can extend them out, and hopefully all the technologies will mesh and we'll give an answer.
So what I would propose to do is go down through items A through Y, found on pages 37 and 38 of your packet. All right. I will look for board consensus on each of the items. The first one is conformance with the comprehensive plan.
So, CEO said, where's there?
Well, that's, CEO says yes.
So that's his assessment.
Anyone have any issues with a yes on that one? Hearing none. Item B. Are there any traffic requirements that need to be met, that aren't met already? Nothing heard. I propose a yes. Site access. Is there adequate access to the site for the developers and for maintenance and repair people? And I will also note that, in case we haven't figured it out, there's going to be a 5-foot fence around the whole thing with gated access.
Also, Chief Susi said he's got no issues with the access
Okay.
for emergency vehicles.
I propose a yes. Pedestrian circulation, in the CEO's opinion, is not applicable. Any objections?
I think you skipped D. Did you skip D?
Did I skip D? Parking and vehicle circulation. Yeah, you're right, I did. It's just the way it got copied.
Yeah.
CEO recommends yes. There's not going to be much parking and vehicle circulation on the
Right, I was
site.
gonna mention that might be NA.
I'll take a yes or an NA.
Well, they do have a road that kind of goes through.
That road will be blocked.
What?
That road will be blocked by the fence.
Right, but
So the vehicle circulation would be really anyone that needs to be in there accessing the actual equipment,
Behind the fence.
repairs within the fence. There will be no people working there on a daily basis.
No.
Basically, it will be maintained when needed.
Maintenance as needed.
Correct.
Yeah. Should they do the job right, won't be very often. Okay, I've checked it off as a yes. If people would prefer an NA, we can change it. I don't think it matters. Pedestrian circulation should be, I agree with the CEO, an NA. Site conditions. CEO recommends yes. I don't find any argument. I know that site pretty well, and it's got a nice slope to it.
Okay, so some of the questions that we had from our preliminary review were that the developer indicate direction of drainage,
We have a map that,
also reflect areas of possible floodplain or shoreline zoning, which is done on these larger sheets. So if you look, for instance, right behind Christine, would actually be in the corners of the actual map. That's how far away that the floodplain and shoreline are. So the development is happening way outside those areas.
upslope, and then everything's up on pedestals anyway.
Is there something that shows the stream protection area?
You mean during construction?
Yep. So if you look at the lower left-hand and lower right-hand corners,
No, of the map
the
itself.
map. Yep. So what you pointed to just then was the legend that indicates what those areas mean?
Are you specifically asking about these?
Well, no, about the stream, the bound, I guess it's here, but
Yeah.
I just
So,
really didn't see anything that,
yeah, the development, the actual development is
70
far enough
it's-
away from the stream that you don't see most of it except for
Only
in the
showing that
corners.
it's more than 75 feet away.
where does it show that?
This is the 75-foot buffer, that one, so that's the 75-foot
Yeah,
buffer
okay.
that jogs around.
Yeah.
And then this shaded area is the wetland.
Yeah.
Um,
It just got cut.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, and then you can kind of see the stripes here, which would be the flood zone.
Okay, we good on that?
Thank you.
So site conditions will go down as a yes. Open space, that's intended for housing developments. It's non-applicable in my opinion. Sanitary sewage, there's no building. Not applicable. Same with water. Not applicable.
There's no water proposed to that for,
No, that's truly passive air-cooled electronics.
Yeah, if you guys want to wait, or I can come out and get you when we're ready to discuss.
Okay, great.
Well-
Just wait out here.
Okay, I'll come get you.
Okay.
Emergency vehicle access, the fire chief, is indicated by the CEO, has said he's okay with that. Waste disposal, there won't be any. Buffering, not an issue. And we also have a letter from the major abutter, fully endorsing the project.
So should that be a yes or an NA? I think the CEO suggested,
He suggested NA.
NA.
Because the buffering they're referring to has to do with, are we planting trees and shrubs? And again, it's a housing development kind of a checkoff.
I hadn't considered maybe the fence could be considered a buffer as well.
Yeah, well, you could. Natural areas. Again, this is what we ask developers to do when they're putting in a development, to leave natural areas. I don't believe it applies here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, but one of the things we did look at in the preliminary design was land that was going to be dedicated to recreation. So like open land, and they have agreed to let the ATV and snowmobile trail stay where it is. Crosses their
Goes around the
property.
perimeter.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're going to allow that to remain
Okay.
on the property.
Exterior lighting is an NA or recommended to be an NA. I wouldn't want to be lighting that up anyway.
what did we decide on natural areas after that discussion? I missed it.
To the intent of the bylaw, as I understand it, that has to do with, if I was doing a housing development, they would want me to leave some areas untouched, natural.
So NA.
I think it's an NA. And I think exterior lighting is an NA. Stormwater management seems to be met, in my opinion. Anyone else?
Good plan, laid out,
Yeah.
very detailed.
Tested my eyes, but it's just well done. Okay, I'll check that as a yes. Very detailed work on the erosion and sediment plan during the actual build-out. Buildings. That's probably going to be some kind of a consolidation shack or something somewhere, but Ken, why did we put yes on buildings instead of NA? Any
I
particular
was in the
reason?
quandary whether the actual apparatus is considered a structure, so it would be a building.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna quibble.
I could have gone either way on that one.
It's a,
but we are putting structures on the property.
yeah, it's acceptable one way or the other.
We'll
Exist,
call that a yes.
yeah, it's a yes. Existing landscaping, there is none, there will be none. And infrastructure, the infrastructure needed is minimal, just the connection to the power system, which is part of the plan. Gonna check it off,
You'll say yes?
yeah.
Okay.
Advertising features recommended NA. There's not gonna be any signage. Design relationship to the site. Recommended yes. I voiced my opinion earlier about it being a good use of the site. And so that's a yes. And surrounding properties. That's the same item. There shouldn't be a separate line of checkoffs.
Ah, you're right.
Scenic and vista areas is non-applicable, in my opinion, and in Ken's. Utilities, well, it is a utility. Recommended yes. Mineral exploration is recommended not applicable. Does this meet the general requirements? Page 859. CEO says yes. And that's it.
So that will take you down to Y. There's actually a Z,
Oh, it shouldn't show up. I'll pen it in. What is the,
phosphorus export.
okay.
So
Forget that
giving their
one.
sediment control and water runoff, I would think that it would be no phosphorus runoff.
Well, we won't be fertilizing.
You said yes or NA? You recommended a yes?
Yes.
Yes, meaning it's not detrimental. All right, now,
So, Mr. Chair, we do have a developer here, if you'd like to hear from Mr. Soderberg, what he has
absolutely.
to say about the project. If you'd
Mr.
like.
Soderberg.
Sure. So you've seen the plan. I think you've noticed it's pretty self-explanatory with what they are. You probably all have seen solar farms, and so, you know, there's a long story to the net energy or the net metering project that the governor has, you know, proposed for Maine, and so this is a typical project of what the state is looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a good site for it. It meets all the requirements, and have been working with Emera for many months now as far as the whole tie-in to the substation, and which is a very complex procedure. But we are working our way through it with engineers. RLC Engineering out of Falmouth is our utility engineer. And so yeah, so I came here just so if there was any questions. And I know Sean tried to join in last meeting, but the Zoom, it just didn't work, so we felt bad. And then this one here, we wanted somebody here, so I thought I would. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'm not sure if we have too many. You need to, I don't think you were outside the door when I explained at the beginning that we're shy by 2 days of the legal requirement to wait 30 days from first hearing to second hearing. It's only been 28. So the proposal is to, assuming we have consensus and for approval, is to sign the approval contingent on no hitches coming up in the next 2 days. Just so you understand why we're doing it that way,
Okay.
okay? I appreciate the effort that you folks have put to provide us with as much information as you did. And sometimes in the past, on some projects, it's like hen's teeth, but it was forthcoming. There were some things missing a month ago, but we got them all.
Well, we tried, and because just like you can see, the form that the city has and the questions, a lot of them may not be applicable for this, and so it was trying to wade through that, what we felt was, or what we needed to hire,
Yep.
ABS engineering to do. And so anyway, those things that we didn't have last time, we added on in this time.
Yep, we're
Was
we're
there
good.
a boundary survey done by Dale Blackstone?
Yes.
You know, that had come from last meeting, and,
Also, if you look in it,
which one is
it is
that?
it's hard to see with the aerial photo, but it's actually placed onto there. There's no meets and bounds or dimensions, but it is on there, the properties are on there.
Okay, 'cause he had brought that up last time, and I just was looking for it.
So but the question remains, is there a survey?
Yes.
Okay. Has your plan on a beginning construction date changed from July of this year? Are you still planning on starting in July?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You know there's another 30-day waiting period between approval and when you can start construction. Just be advised.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in the rules.
Yep.
Okay.
We're still working with Emera as well.
Let's just
so
clarify that.
that time should be fine, I think.
Approval would be effective on the 13th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put you out to July 13th start date.
Okay.
Could you speak, Carl, as to the size of the array? I mean, it's a fairly decent sized facility.
Right, so it's the common size we're hearing is 5 megawatts, which is kind of that limit. So most of them that you're seeing that have been talked about or in other towns have been 4,995 kind of thing, and that's what this is. So it's just under 5 megawatts. And again, that meets the governor's initiative of net metering. So the PUC, this is kind of what they've set up, so that's kind of the benchmark, and they can certainly be smaller, but- which roughly is 20 acres.
Does the board have anything further? Thank you for coming, by the way, I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. No?
Okay, I'm going to steal the sign-off sheet from your copy.
Okay.
So that we have one. And I'll pair it with this.
Yeah, so now this gets back to my earlier question. You realize that the preliminary site review paperwork form that we just went through and supposedly continued,
Mm-hmm.
you know that the final was resubmitted and it's different from the preliminary, that upfront information.
That's all right.
Okay. I just wanted to.
There's
make
no
sure that we
sign
don't
off on the
need-
preliminary.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't confusion over what was signed and what wasn't.
Okay. I'm going to write in contingency, conditions of approval. 2-day waiting period. For any additional comments.
Mr. Chairman, this
Yes,
is
sir.
the city manager.
Yes, sir. I'm listening.
I don't know, just quickly. You'll just make sure that the comments, if there are any comments between now and those 2 days, those be turned into Ken and he can report those out.
I'll put that in, that they need to go to the CEO. Thank you. I would entertain a motion from the board.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Corvo moves, Drew seconds. Roll call vote. Any discussion before I do the roll call?
And the motion is to approve
Yes,
with the condition.
with these conditions.
Okay, thank you.
They're written in, so it's going to happen anyway. Mr. Corvo.
Yes.
Your scratch paper. Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
Christine? Amanda? Yes.
Yes.
Drew? Frank?
Yes.
And myself. It's unanimous. I will sign this and send it around for further signatures.
We actually have the 3 full-size sheets, and technically we're supposed to sign those as well. Sign one, I'll get copies made.
We'll do that before we leave tonight for sure.
Thank you.
So nobody leave. Okay. I've got so much stuff from that. The next item is new communications. Right?
Correct.
Okay. The first one on the list is well, why don't you tell us, Ken?
Well, let me catch up. Okay, we will have soon another solar project to consider. This is the one on the old Ogden Road, so our old dump site. And basically, they've taken back their initial application for us to consider, in that they were working with a smaller and smaller area because of wetlands on the site. And
we're
since
in new
then, they've
business,
talked
okay.
to a neighboring farmer, Drett Farms, and they've come to an agreement that they'll be using some leased land, in addition to the land on Yogan Road, to come up with enough developable area for their solar array. So that's forthcoming. That'll come back to us.
And I have a funny feeling the Jarrett Farms land is in R3, so
Correct.
we're faced with the same situation we just did. Okay. Well, I'm glad that's moving forward.
There's one item I wanted to point out. During our last I can't remember the company that came in, that did a solar array, and we treated it as a similar use to a public utility as opposed to a public utility. Has there been, I think we set the precedent then, but yet today
Right.
we kind of looked at this as a public utility.
Th-
Where
that-
are we? how are we
That
gonna
seems
do
to be the best spot in our land use table.
We're going to
for-
do
for
it
that kind of
as a public utility from now on?
Yeah, unless we,
Based on the scale, I think, of this one.
well, we don't have any other place to hang our hat on other than public utility. 'Cause there is no line item for solar arrays.
Right, the last time we did it under similar use as a public utility.
Well, it still gets you into that same slot, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the one for,
I can't remember.
on the River Road.
There you go, yes.
That was the CUD project
Yeah.
with,
Yeah, I'm very averse to going to modifying once again the land use table. I think we can deal with it as a public utility or similar use.
so the public utility seems to be the best fit, but as we work through chapter 13, we definitely might think of definitions for solar array.
Yeah.
That's lacking in our code.
Yeah, and you could just open up that spreadsheet, one row.
A little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, can we go to 5, item 5, number A?
Sure. Actually, we've got the developer here for Caribou Senior Living as well. One thing that I don't know if it was overlooked or misunderstood in the original proposal for Caribou Senior Living, so taking the Hilltop School and making senior living independent care situation. If you haven't been by there, you should go by there.
I went by a
It's
couple
a
weeks ago.
beautiful facility. It's going to be very nice. So the developers would like to house the nursing office on the facility.
We talked about that at the original review.
Right. The concern would be that if this nursing business would be working outside the envelope. So if they were extending out into the community, would that be actually a commercial application in a residential area?
Oh, that's a new
Because they're
aspect.
providing services to that.
Right.
No, outside.
And again, we
Yeah.
look to our code to find some solutions, and what we find is that there's no definition for a compatible use or I forget the other word. Dennis, are you listening to that? Accessory use, excuse me, I found it. So, as we discuss this, I think it makes a lot of sense to have that service in that
Accessory
envelope.
use.
Accessory use, thank you. But again, we look to our code to provide those answers. And it's,
Is there an impediment in the code?
We don't know what to call.
there's no guidance, there's no description of an accessory use for that application.
So is the issue
So-
is the issue that nursing services are desired to be provided within the residential?
So actually, a
No,
nursing
actually
home,
within, but outside as well to the public.
a nursing
Or
home
to
would have been
people
good.
come
Yeah,
in as an outpatient?
right.
That falls under contract services. And why wouldn't that fall under the umbrella of the whole unit?
Be no different from a doctor's office, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
Okay. For instance, a nursing home would be fine in that zone.
Yeah.
The question is, if they conduct in such a way where they reach out in the community, is that a commercial application? And I'm actually putting it to you because, again, the code book doesn't give me that guidance, so
So what would
I'm
be?
leading
Well,
on.
they would be going, maybe they would be going to someone else's home in a different location in the community to provide home nursing services. I don't see how that has any bearing on anything, personally.
Is that the extent of it though, or are people actually?
I don't think they're
coming
talking
to the
about a walk-in
facility?
clinic. Are they talking about a walk-in clinic?
No.
No.
No
Not at
walking.
all,
Okay.
no.
They're just saying, we are a nursing company, whatever, we provide nursing care. and we're gonna deal with the people on this property, but we'd also like to be able to go out and
I get it.
deal with Bob White when he gets old.
So they're going to have an office plus dispatching people out into the community and the residences there.
Yes, I'm not familiar with how the nursing services work through that company, but the offices would be at the Hilltop site,
So
at
how
the
many
Carver Senior Living Center.
employees would they be having at that facility? That, I guess
Carl might know.
that might be
You know
the
that?
impact in the
I'm
neighborhood.
not sure of the actual
Yeah.
numbers. I don't have that because it's,
Well, if they're providing the same care that they are in the nursing home, they're just doing it out and about in the community.
Yep.
I don't think that would,
I'm gonna say there's.
They're doing the same
could be
thing.
6 to 8 or 10, something like that, that is gonna serve, it's
That
just
are-
what,
Right. Where's the office now?
in town.
Okay.
I think they're at, on Main Street.
So that we can facilitate people that are there,
Right.
that
Yeah.
can good access, to nursing right there. But
Right.
these nursing people can also go visit one that might be just down the street.
Right.
I don't see
I,
any effect.
no, neither do I.
don't understand.
The offices are going to be there as part of the original plan, and there's no problem with that.
So the nursing service is already here in Caribou, so they've already been permitted to do business
Oh,
here
yeah.
in Caribou.
So
So,
do we need to kind of categorize it? Is that what?
well, as a for instance, the closest thing I can think of would be Leisure Gardens in Presque Isle, where all the services are kind of a la carte. In that situation, the service comes in.
Mm-hmm.
There's no office space there. And that would be the difference between this application.
Well, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything in our code that prohibits it. And for me, that's the bottom line. I have not the authority to bless it, but I don't see why we need to spend any more time on it.
I concur.
You can convey,
I was seeking your guidance. If that's your guidance, that's what we're gonna roll
Add a
with.
different use than what we've
That's
already
what I'm
approved.
getting at, yeah.
We need to say, this is the use. Is it allowed in this zone? Does the CEO approve it, or does the planning board approve it? And so for something like a nursing home, group home, which is what's already there, I guess, what we already approved.
well, senior living, it's not a nursing
Planning
home.
board approval is needed in that, I think, was it R3 or R2 zone?
And just say, if it was approved, when we came in with our plan,
When we approved it, we knew there was going to be an office there for nurses.
that's correct.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have a building permit, and the offices are all built, and so we didn't come, it was Ken that said, gee, maybe we gotta look at this or something. and that's
So
fine. We just-
this is out of abundance of caution.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, out of an abundance of common sense, I'm saying, let it go.
Again, I was seeking your guidance, so if it takes no action, we're good to go.
I think if the desired use is within what was already asked for, then I don't think any additional action is necessary at this point. That's my opinion. If the proposed use is different from what was proposed and approved, then some kind of a revision would need to be made.
Well, it's just that the idea of people working in that office possibly going to someone else's residence never came up, but I just fail to see why it
Board
matters.
members, can I back a little here?
Oh, sure. Come on.
There's a delay.
Oh,
Oh. The issue comes down to, is this an accessory use or is it the primary use? I'm dealing with the lag in in video and sound here, all the place.
Well, what is your guidance on it? I mean, I'm still looking for a reason that we're making a big discussion.
So if you look at the land use table, okay,
So it could be that they're doing something that the
the
planning board
big
might have to
discussion is that under the land use table, in one place it says that a business medical office is not permitted in this R2 zone as a primary use. The assisted living center is allowed as the primary use. So tonight, we're really saying, or asking the board to say, this is a minor element, accessory use for the primary use. And it's, okay,
All right, I think that's what we're saying without using the formal language of accessory use. But I think that's what we intend to be saying.
You need a motion, Mr. Chairman? or
I'm
do you need-
yeah, I'm beginning to think we do. So, just so we can close this item out.
I would-
yeah, so that's the background for why there's,
But there's been no request for accessory use. This is just a discussion. So I don't think a motion for anything is
No,
necessary.
When
they-
we originally did the
We're getting
the
all,
review of the Caribou Senior Living, they
we,
said that there would be one employee. And so now they're adding extra employees, extra traffic, extra impact on the infrastructure. So that's what they're just saying is like, are these people, there's more people than what was initially
yeah,
said.
you're right, but you always have to
But it's-
ask the other question, does it
so-
matter?
Right.
Yeah.
So can he decide that it's fine to go ahead with what
Well,
was
he has-
done, or does the planning board?
He
need
has,
to go through
I
the whole-
don't think it's a planning board has to do this, or CEO can't do that.
So-
I think Ken has come to us for guidance, and I'm thinking if we just
Yeah.
enter a motion in the minutes, that we give him the guidance that this is okay.
Yeah,
That's all.
that sounds great.
So, Frank,
Accessory use.
I move that we support the accessory use as proposed to this project.
all right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Dave seconds. Any further discussion?
There's nothing been proposed, Mr. Chairman. This is just a discussion.
This is an advisory motion,
Okay.
so we can get off the dime on a very minor question. Amanda, what's your vote?
Yes.
Christine? Yes. Dan?
No.
Yes.
Dave, yes. Drew?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who am I missing?
Yourself?
Oh, yeah, me. I'm a yes. 6-1. Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in further rezoning conversation, we've had an interest by local businessmen for a look at right here in this neighborhood on Main Street. For years and years, Rick Sullivan's been able to rent office space on his Main Street property at 713 Main Street. These past few years, the interest in those office spaces is waned. The buildings go empty on the first floor. In the meantime, he's developed a very nice apartment space on the second floor of one of his buildings, which is allowed in the C2 area. He would very much like to fully build out the rest of his 2 buildings here for residential use. However, in a C2 area, that's not allowed. So he's asking us to consider a couple things. One would be the application of a mixed use that we talk about now as we talk about Chapter 13. That's not official yet. So we couldn't really act on that until such time as we had an official mixed use zone and land use. However, he is abutting across Hammond Street onto an R2 area, which would allow for that kind of activity. So it could be rezoned to an R2. He could build out his buildings with residential, and that would be fine. He's not asking this time that we do that. He wanted me to bring this to you for information only. That's what he's thinking. He was wondering if there was a conditional approval he could do with the current zoning. And I said that according to our code, no, there is no conditional use like that. So this is just for information, but Rick's thinking of, again, investing in the community for what he terms high-end apartments. You know, I take him on his word for that. It would be very nice, I think, nicely done. And so as we move forward, we'll wait to see what kind of, if he approaches us for a zoning change, and that'll be a future action.
Yeah,
Now, would that be something that the planning board would have to consider and approve?
And the council as well.
we would have to recommend it to city council, and
And that's
they would
the
also
council.
have to.
That's
approve.
what I thought, it would
Yep.
have to be approved. Okay.
And since the property abuts the residential area just to the north, I thought about this today, as we can't really object to it on the idea of spot zoning, because it's not an isolated spot. It's
But if we did a mixed zone application, we would either have to encapsulate more area, or that would be spot zoning. So, as we think in terms of that mixed-use district, we will look at those interfaces on all our main drags, all our main streets, where our commercial buildings are raked together with our residential buildings.
Well, it's going to depend on timing. If he's got an urgent need before we finalize the new bylaw, then maybe the way he has to go is to request a change of zoning. If we get there first, we should keep in mind that maybe we should redraw the line for the mixed-use zone a little bit to include that property, and then the issue goes away anyway.
Yeah, we have had other interests in that same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, it was a commercial in the R2. So, yeah. So anyway, good information for today, and something to think
Yep.
about in the future.
Cart before the horse right now.
So, cart before the horse. We've been approached by the Aroostook Driving School. They were displaced, one because of school construction. I think, didn't they used to operate from the middle school?
Not sure.
But then again, they were displaced by coronavirus 19. So they're looking for an envelope now that they can use with enough space for a classroom setting, where everyone's distanced enough. And what they found is the Warehouse Restaurant, which is recently closed. They've come to an agreement with the owner over there. They can have a lease. It's open-ended. I think it's, from the conversation, I feel it was a temporary arrangement, but the lease is open, so it's month to month. Read into that whatever you will. I received the application for the use application yesterday. So that's on the table in front of you. The issue here, and again, I was doing my review, doing my homework, and I realized that one lot on that side of the road where the warehouse is actually an I-1 lot. The rest of it's all C2. And across the street where the Department of Transportation yard is, that's I-1. So that one lot on the other side of the street on Evergreen Parkway has to come to the planning board for this consideration.
Okay. Now, because I can never remember the details of our rules, because they're always buried somewhere, if we were to consider this change of use, okay? And it comes to us because it's in I-1, right?
Right.
Do we have to do preliminary site review, final site plan review, which is the minimum 2-month process? Or can we, as a planning board, just say, this we decree that this use is permitted.
So, again, in this application, I've come to the planning board for guidance in that they're not building, they're leasing an existing building. So when you go down the site design review, many of those questions have to do with a new building.
Yeah, exactly.
Development. So, in a lease situation, we have a businessman that's already developed the property, or redeveloped an existing property. He's trying to make some revenue off the space now that he's no longer running a restaurant. This opportunity would allow him some revenue while he reworks his business plan for this property. And it offers a unique opportunity for the driving school to be able to hold a class where everyone is sufficiently distanced enough in a classroom setting. So, yeah, the dilemma is, okay, the permit application's in our hands now, and do we need to go to a public hearing? If that would have been a C1 or C2, that would have been in-house review. So myself and the building inspectors and manager
Right.
would look at this, and since it's an I1, it has to come to planning board, according to our land use table.
Yeah, it has to come to planning board for approval of the use. You haven't answered my question. Do we have to do a 2-month hearing process just to say, okay, put a classroom in the existing building?
And that's the conversation I had with the manager, and he said, the safest thing to do is bring it to the planning board. And so I'm bringing it to the
Okay, so it's here.
What are you be calling the use?
It would be a public or private school, I believe.
So I see every zone calls for planning board review, is that?
In that line,
Yeah.
for a public or private school.
We have to review this regardless, but we could decide, like you say, if we do an abbreviated.
I would really like to know whether the board has the power to decide when we have to do this hearing process and when we can waive it. And I'm not getting a good answer from above.
Dennis, are you hearing this conversation?
Would all use permit
The lag.
applications
The code does
necessarily?
not currently give the planning board the authority to waive standard.
That was broken up. Say it again. This isn't working well.
I believe it says the code doesn't give the choice. If it goes to planning
The
board.
current Title 13 does not give us a review.
I cannot understand the last end of the sentence. I would like to hear him say, yes, you have to have a hearing, or no, you don't.
I'm going to come down to the chambers since I can do that now that people are signing out.
Okay. Personally,
So the other issue with our dilemma here on this application is I feel that since school is out, they're looking to start driving school as soon as they can. So the best we could do is schedule a public hearing in 15 days, if we have to have a public hearing. And it very easily could be next month's meeting before we can make this decision.
oh, no, if we start the hearing process, there's the preliminary review, and then there's the final site plan review, and that's at least 2 months.
Another 30 days, yeah.
Yeah, which takes them right through summer, half of it. Dennis, I'm sorry, Mr. Marker, I am trying to get my hands around the issue of when it says planning board review, whether that means the whole 9 yards, or we as a planning board can look at a project and say, yeah, go, just like the CEO could if it was a CEO review.
The land use table says that if it has planning board as the reviewing body for this use, then that means the planning board has to go through a site plan review process for that use.
That ought to be fixed. God.
So the question would be, could it be an abbreviated site design review considering it's a lease of an existing building?
would love to have that in the processes to where we could do that based on the use, particularly in this case where the use is anticipated to be even less impacting than the
Yeah.
previous use. But again, we don't have that modified processes in the code. So, I mean, really one of your options would be to say, if we allow it, sue us.
I like that one. No, I'm kidding. What I'm leading up to, I was afraid you were going to say that. What I'm leading up to is do we have the power to allow the use, and in the minutes, it's contingent upon the future site plan review? So they can get started before we actually do the review, since there's no construction. There's no paving of parking lots, there's no planting of shrubs.
Theoretically, the answer is no to that. Where you may be able to get around it is he came to us for guidance. We tell him that we see no objection to it, and he can make the decision right then and there, can't he?
Well, I think Mr. Marker would disagree with you.
Well, another way we can maybe look at this is that the land use table does not specifically define this type of a classroom setting and what they're doing. Other than, you know, it's not a true public school or a private school that you have classes meeting throughout the day and times. This is a little unique. The land use table does allow in the I-1 zone that if it's a similar or use similar to another use, the CEO would have the authority to review it. And maybe that's how we treat it, that you can say this is a unique situation that you feel is of such a low impact that it would meet the need for only the CEO to review it.
The gears are turning again. Companies, manufacturing companies or other kinds of commercial companies that are located in the I-1 zone would, by their very nature, conduct training classes within their facilities. They would have a classroom, and they would not be coming to us for permission to use that as a classroom. So I'm saying it's an accessory use which the CEO can take care of.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's accessory use because it would be the only use in the building, but I think your line of thought there is still saying it's not an impact that the CEO could cover it. And
Yeah.
it would be okay.
Yeah,
Did they say that this was a temporary?
we don't know. We're speculating on that.
We're speculating, but
Land use called temporary non-conforming structure or use.
Again, there's that word
By the
structure.
CEO.
It's not the same thing.
Oh,
I mean, if you want to really get down and dig deep, the Department of Transportation does have training sessions for their snowplow drivers in that I-1 zone.
yeah, I'm sure they do.
So, I mean, it's being conducted right next door.
similar use.
Yeah. It's my recommendation that we ask the CEO to approve this on basis of similar use, and we can leave out the "so sue me" clause.
Can we get a motion to that effect?
Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Amanda's made it. Drew has seconded. Further discussion. David,
Yes.
Dan,
You have to repeat the motion. I'm not understanding what's being asked for again.
we're asking the CEO to approve the use as a similar use.
I don't think that's permitted.
It's a business that was hit by COVID-19. They were displaced. They're looking for a place to conduct their business, to keep their business going,
Right.
to keep generating income. I mean, this is the whole topic of discussion here, correct? You know, it's an open-ended lease, maybe temporary, maybe 6 months, a year, depending on what happens with COVID-19. Who knows?
If someone comes in and challenges it, then we'll go through the site process. But why go through it ahead of time when most of us feel it's not needed?
Okay, thank you.
So you,
I'll, if that's permitted, then my vote is yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Amanda made the motion, but you're going to vote anyway. Drew? Frank?
Yes.
David? Me. We're all done. All set, Ken?
I will do my homework and
Thank you.
put these people to work. And finally, we get to talk about solar arrays again. So we have an additional interest, this time on the Dow Siding Road. A developer's been over there for a couple of years now. Initially harvested the saleable logs off the property. Now he's looking to develop. He's got a couple ideas. He's thought about residential application. He's also really serious about solar power. So this will be a permit that's coming down the road, but he's actually introduced us to his solar power people just today. I don't know if the manager saw the email come through late in the afternoon. So this is happening even as we speak. So real time stuff here. So, solar power seems to be big this year.
I missed the gentleman's name.
Kelly Rio on the Dow Siding Road.
I'll have to look up where that is.
And that's all I had for new communications.
Now we've got this other issue, which keeps rearing its head.
Okay, so this item really wouldn't even be on our agenda, except that we wanted to make sure before everything was said and done that the conditions were met by a previous planning board decision. So I went earlier this week and I actually got pictures of a fence that was installed over to Phil Duplessis' property where he does his automotive repair business. He asked that he not be required to do siding right now because his business plan is actually to add another bay and hire a person.
Mm-hmm.
So if he would apply the siding, he would have to rip it right back off in order to build a new bay. So that's a really short explanation of the big long bunch of paper that's in the history that we enclosed in your packet. Phil is here. If you'd like to hear from Phil Duplessis. I think staff here at the office are confident that he's in compliance. We've had conversations, and again in your packet you'll notice a lot of talk about junkyards and automotive graveyards and so forth. So a week or so ago, 2 weeks, a neighbor offered some information regarding the statute that he offered up for information. That's also in your packet.
Yeah.
As you read down through the statute, it goes on about having so many cars in your yard could mean that you're an automobile junkyard. So it's like more than three cars over a given time. However, it goes on to say lower in the first page that except that if a person is repairing those cars to put them back into service, it's not considered an automobile graveyard or junkyard. So in speaking to the people in the Presque Isle office at DEP, they have no issues with this business. They're actually going to do another check of a oil water separator. They've done one in the past and found no issues. I can't say the whole neighborhood will be happy.
No.
But I am confident that this business is in compliance.
In that case, my recommendation would be for you to carry on.
Very good. I don't think we need a motion.
I don't either.
Do you have anything you like to add, Phil?
Yeah, can I get that in writing that I'm not going to be bothered anymore?
We can't guarantee that.
Wow.
That's your neighbor.
I don't know how you're going to stop him. I've been stressed so bad from that man. It's unreal.
All we can do is,
Turn around.
all we can do is have the CEO say that you're in compliance with your permit. And after that, it's a civic matter that's beyond our control.
I understand that, but see, he calls DEP on me, says that my drain is ruining his brother-in-law's well.
Yeah, we've been down this road before, I know that.
So that's, I mean,
If DEP has already inspected it,
oh yeah,
well,
gone
then-
through it.
it's out of my hand, out of the board's hands.
Well, I
for
keep
sure.
getting letters, or I get contacted from Ken. We work good together, but I mean, every time that man gets a hair, he calls the police on me, or he goes to here, or he bothers the city manager, or he's gone to the mayor. I mean, I'm not bothering the man. I just want to be left alone so I can make money and take care of my family.
Well, I don't know.
I just don't know how this is going to end. How do you stop him?
I'm not a lawyer.
Well.
I know my lawyer. He's not too
The
impressed.
tools we have within our code allow us to say you're in compliance. I do understand the concern. We've got a business owner here that wants to make an investment on his business. And he's still worried about, if that business is going to be viable in its current location.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm ready to put another 30 feet on it, but he keeps bothering me next door and complaining.
Is
So why should I do that?
that 30 feet in his direction?
It is.
Okay.
It's within the setbacks.
Yeah, I was just curious. But
It's behind the fence.
It's over 60 feet from his property line.
this is a neighbor-to-neighbor
I know.
spite issue. All I can suggest is that you have your attorney work it out with his attorney, because there's nothing we can do that I can see.
I just don't want to have to come and bother and waste your time. That's all. Because this was a waste of time, actually. I'm sure you guys have bigger things to deal with.
Mr. Chair, I guess one of the questions that still ought to be resolved tonight is, other than the application of siding on the structure, it does appear that all of the conditions have been met.
Yeah?
So if the planning board wants to modify that condition of applying siding on the structure, then that should be made formal. And then if the planning board's okay with a timeframe for not applying the siding, there should be a timeframe established in which for them to make the application for the expansion or put the siding on. And then we can write appropriate notes or to the file as far as those conditions.
Okay.
That's why I never put the siding on, because I wanted to expand
How soon do you plan on expanding
this year.
this year?
Just trying to get this all done, so they leave me alone.
So are there any current notices of violation?
No, and even the condition put on by the planning board was over and above. Typically, even if we had an automobile junkyard, a barrier would be a tree line. There's always been a tree line. You see everything from earth berms to stockade fences to, tree lines. So Mr. Duplessis actually gone over and above, I think, a couple different times here.
I'm trying to find a copy of our agreement or our,
And so we want to agree as a board that we can allow.
what we need to,
unsided for a period of time.
we put a condition on an approval. I'm trying to find the approval so we can have a motion to change the condition. Boy.
I take it this is Mr. Duplessis' fence?
That's the fence. As of Tuesday. Was it Tuesday I was up there?
I'd have to find it, it's in here.
Started last year.
I can't find the doggone thing. Here we go. I can find the minutes, but I can't find the agreement.
As far as your drain goes, you have a separator?
Here we go.
Yeah, Scan Russia. Goes down, the water, yeah. Taught me how to do it, and I did it. For the pipe, the water separator, oil separator,
Is any third party come and look at that, or is that,
DEP.
and they approved everything?
Yeah, they looked at it.
Yeah.
And then under my floor grading, I have a absorbent pad, so nothing even gets past the floor grading. And the only reason I had to put a drain in there is for in the wintertime when the snow melts off and it goes into the drain. Nothing ever goes out the drain because it's never got high enough.
I got it.
They told me they looked at when DEP come, they looked at the end of the drain, stuck their finger in there, and it was nothing. No residue, no nothing.
Okay, members, page 114, manually marked 114 of your packet, is the page from May 9th, 2019, where we approved with the condition of completing the prior building permit, siding. We didn't put a date on it. The second condition was a fence on the south and north boundaries. That's been met. Is there a date on the building permit that needs to be changed?
The building permit was deemed complete a long time ago by our assessors.
Oh,
So when they see a project that's substantially complete, it's assessed at full value, basically.
so technically it's complete. Well, how do you feel about writing a letter?
We write letters every day. I think I'll have the manager help me with this one, which also happens.
Write a letter to Mr. Duplessis saying that for the purposes of assessment, the building permit has been completed and that the board understands the delay in the siding for the purposes of making an addition, and suggest that that gets done within 1 year.
1 year would be the limit of a new building permit, as it so happens, so that would be ideal.
Okay. Now, one of you needs to just take what I just said and make a motion.
I would make a motion that we extend or issue a new building permit for the,
He hasn't applied for the new building
okay,
permit.
so add a condition to.
What we're doing is we're saying that the conditions in our original approval have been met, and we're giving him 1 more year to do the addition in lieu of the siding.
Okay. So I would make a motion that one of the conditions for completing a fence was completed, and that you will extend the condition, I guess, for siding for another 12 months.
Upon completion of his addition.
For completion of this condition. Upon completion of this condition.
Well, when he does the addition, the siding's got to go on.
Already have it in the shed. Just waiting.
Just clean that up, Ken, and
I'm hoping that someone wrote it down.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I'll
we got
second
it.
the motion.
thank
Got
you.
it.
You're welcome.
Motion made and seconded. Man, these roll calls are weird.
Yes.
David's a yes.
Yes.
You're a yes. Christine, Amanda, Drew, Frank, and myself, it's unanimous. And that ends that item.
Thank you, and thank you, Phil, for coming out tonight.
So tell us again, what do you got to tell him?
Again, we're going to write a letter. You said you wanted it in writing.
Yeah, you gotta shut him down. Thank you, everybody.
Have a
Okay,
good evening. So that's everything that I had, except for some updates as far as our staff updates, I should say, excuse me.
Yeah.
I've lost my entire agenda. So, I lost my agenda, so I'm just gonna cuff it. How about that? So we've been staying very busy. We're still working on the Blight Initiative. There's gonna be a lot of work there. I'm a couple days out from having the entire, the data all set for our scoring of every building in the city. There were, I think, 3,600 buildings that we placed. And there's 7 criteria for each, so that's 20.
That's a lot of work.
Data entries, so we're getting close.
Talking every building in the community?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely every residence.
Start.
We probably didn't get every outbuilding, but, yeah. So we've been to every corner of the city, every road. So very systematically grading each structure. The good news is we have a lot of what I call 80/80s, 20/20s, in that they're well-kept buildings with well-kept grounds. We've got a few hundreds, brand-new buildings that you see going up. So we have new development in the city, which is also very, very encouraging. But we also have some that aren't so nice. So we're identifying those as well. Notices of violation. This is the season. The snow's gone now, and just before all the leaves pop out, everything is evident. So we can't wait for the Blight Initiative to be totally complete, where we're sending out notices of violation. We're seeing some more collapsed buildings. We're trying to go after the dangerous buildings first, but we have pop-up junkyards around the city. You see them. We're perfecting notices of those violations and trying to get those sore spots cleaned up. Demolition. If you've been around the town, you've seen over on Patton Street, we've had a couple houses taken down. Those sites have been mulched and seeded. The area off Patton Street will now be kind of a waypoint on our ATV trails.
Yeah.
For a park and ride or a place for riders to gather along the way. We've completed the final demolition on 25 Liberty Street, which was seeded and mulched as well. That's a lot now. It's a developable lot.
Is that the house that burnt here?
No, that one is not in the city's control just yet. That one will be another notice of violation. Needs to be taken care of. We've taken down, most recently, a building on 66 York Street. That is now a developable lot. We're completing action, this phase of the cleanup at Bird's Eye with the help of Public Works, hauling debris away from that project, saving us literally truckloads of money.
Can I ask a question relative to that?
Certainly.
The Black Lagoon.
Okay, yeah.
Was it filled with sawdust originally?
We filled it with ash, as was recommended by DEP, basically to dampen the smell. This is all organic material that was left there when the plant closed years and years and years ago. We were able to come to an agreement with the utilities district, and we pumped it as low as we could get, right out to the sewer system. We put the ash in there again and as well as other debris from the site to cake that and hopefully eliminate the Black Lagoon.
So there's some that's buried there then?
Yes. But I think it's largely dried up. I was there today. You can see one, every time they stomp it, a little comes to the top. So.
It's not hazardous, it's inert organic
Yeah.
material.
I was just wondering if it was ever going to settle down, if we were ever to develop it and erect something on there, if it would be an issue.
We'll have to address it again when we go to the next phase of cleanup because there's still a lot of concrete on that site. So we've got a lot of impervious surface that needs to be cleaned up at later dates. We'll address it then.
From a structural standpoint, couldn't you build on top of that existing concrete?
The freezer plant pad would be an excellent candidate for that. The pad was well kept because it was covered all those years, and it's also insulated on the bottom. So portions of that where the loading dock would have to go. It's not sound any longer. The rest of it was built patchwork over years. As the factory expanded, they would put a new floor here, a new concrete slab there. That's riddled with pipes and chases, and really it's broken up to the point where not much of it's reusable.
Just the freezer pad is.
The freezer pad would be a good candidate for use. And you could raise a metal structure on that area, I think. So, if you have a development plan, let us know.
Yeah.
Boy, do I enjoy talking about the old bird's eye site.
Sorry about
What's the
that.
square
I tried not to
footage
dwell
of
on it.
that pad?
Oh, the usable pad?
Yeah, what's
I
the
don't
square
know.
footage of that pad?
Oh, it's monstrous.
Oh,
I'll have to look it up. I don't have those numbers.
yeah.
Probably somewhere in the vicinity of 150 by 200, 250.
It's very large. We hope to attempt a equipment
Over an acre.
sales and service to stay here and develop that site, but we weren't able to do that.
Okay,
I'm probably missing something, but that's all I can think of at the moment.
well, future land use plan, but boy, we've talked about land use plans a lot already tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Well, basically, we haven't forgot the future land use plan. We're
Still working.
Still working on it. And that's a good segue, and we have the manager here with any Chapter 13 discussion that you have for us this evening.
We provided you additional changes that we, looking at with the definition part of the Title 13. There's, as you look at a regulatory framework for Title 13, some of the things I've noticed that we have some what are considered common terms, or things that everybody knows what that is, or that really don't need to have in there because they're a common term, or maybe they're a term trade that they're unique, specific to a type of industry, flood hazard, DEP types of things. But within that trade, they are a common term as well. ADT, AADT. It's an acronym that almost anybody that deals with traffic planning and site planning knows that's annual daily traffic, or average annual daily traffic. So there's some of those things. There's a lot of going and comparing definitions that the state has. And if the state has certain definitions in place, that means that they've, in a sense, created what the standard is. And so part of the review of the definitions is going back and making sure that we're consistent with what the state has, or even just referencing the state's terms. For instance, some of the marijuana regulations, the state's basically taken full control of the marijuana industry. And if we just point ourselves to a lot of their definitions and their regulations, we'd be better off than trying to keep up with all the changes that they make every single year and trying to update our codes
Yeah.
the same way. But there's things like that with shoreline zoning and wetland areas. What I've gone through just in the pages so far, the 5 or 6 pages of definition changes that were in the packet tonight are just things that I've seen that we can clarify, clean up, and we're trying to go through the rest of the definitions in a similar fashion. The other thing I'm looking for in going through the definition review is when you look at something that's defined, you also look to see if it's defined, is it regulated? Otherwise, if we're not regulating it, why are we so concerned about defining it? And so there are some words in there that you'll see we've defined it, but we don't have any regulations. Or maybe that term is encompassed by a broader term that we do regulate. And so rather than drilling down to very specific uses, that someone could say, well, that's not really that, or that's not really that. Try to keep things a little bit broader where we can, where we have regulations and equipment. But there are certain things that I can see that are defined, that are unique and we probably would want to incorporate into the land use table and play that one out all the way. That way, there's not a confusion. You've defined it, where are you regulating it, how are you regulating it? And some of it's just a matter of, well, which zone do we really want to allow those things in? Something as simple as a medical service office was talked about tonight. We have offices, medical facilities, clinics, but what about a little doctor's office in somebody's home or as an accessory use? We don't currently allow accessory uses in our land use table. So arguably, if somebody has an accessory use on their property, it's not permitted because it's not in the land use table as an accessory use that's permitted. So these are some of the little nuances of the definitions that I'm going through, comparing the land use table to what we have and trying to get everything cross-connected.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've got any questions on some of the recommended changes or.
I was remiss, I forgot to review this part. I will.
Yeah, I'll be reviewing it.
I like what you're doing. It's very easy to read and understand your process, and I just did not get to it today. I kind of went off the coat rack when I saw this thing about the driving school.
If you like reading the dictionary as a young child, this is perfect for you.
Well, I didn't go that far.
Or the encyclopedia. Let me know if you have any questions.
We will. Appreciate everything you're doing. I hope you're planning to stay around for a while. We'll get this project done.
That's what I told him last week.
That's right. We do. We have a goal to have it done by the end of this year, so that's.
That was our goal last year.
Councilor Ayers indicated they have until then.
Does anyone in the room, on the board or otherwise, have anything further for tonight? Our next meeting will be in July on the 9th, which is the second Thursday, right here in River City at 5:30. Anything further? This meeting's adjourned.